Hiya, Dr. Allison J.K. here, and I'm right at a sacred site, the Glastonbury Abbey, and I'm directly on the Mother Mary ley line. And I'm going to talk about something I don't typically talk about outside of my bigger program, my signature program, Magic Manifestation and Money Flow, and even more in my mastermind. It seems like I have been following, without even consciously, totally, fully realizing it, the mystery schools. ISIS had the first mystery school, and then the Mary Magdalene mystery school was formed after, obviously, historically, the ISIS mystery school in Egypt. And it is kind of like that in the mastermind, as I just completed 3 weeks of retreats with 3 different groups, and the last one really having a theme of the divine feminine. I am so much about the divine feminine that I don't even talk about it openly in my marketing to the general public. It's just such an inherent part of me that it's almost, I can't say it's almost overlooked, but the right people find me and then they end up working with me, and it comes out as a lot of the clearings and activations are focused on bringing back the divine feminine. I went to Asia for 10 years, as many of you already know, to look for the internal, to look for the holistic. I'll never forget coming back from Asia, and my first time in giving a public talk, my first signature program, The Nature of the Mind, from all the decades of meditating and teaching meditation, as well as my Western psychology background. Meeting with a man who had just opened up an integrative health clinic, and him telling me, and looking at my background, that I needed to focus on one thing. And I said to him, this is the holistic model. And that was in 2010. So I'm above the Mother Mary crypt. The opposite me is the first chapel dedicated to Christianity in the West, on the site of an old Celtic temple here in the Glastonbury Abbey grounds. And Jesus of Arimathea is recorded to have been here trading from the Middle East for the tin and copper in Cornwall, and coming up here to Glastonbury, to Weary Hill, and planting his thorn tree branch that is of the Mediterranean. And they take every year from that thorn tree a cutting from here, the Glastonbury Abbey, and put it on the English monarch's table for Christmas. So William Blake, one of my favorite poets, has the New Jerusalem poem about it here. So I'm opposite the original Mary Chapel, and I'm on the Mother Mary ley line. And I'm learning about how the Mary Magdalene Gospel was obviously in the Committee of Nicaea in the 300s, met and ruled out, as they set up what was going to be the church's hierarchy for well over a millennia, and still to this day, they took out the Mary Gospel. And the Mary Gospel seems, Mary Magdalene, when I'm saying Mary now, seems to be entirely focuses, I'm learning, on the internal processes, taking directly from Jesus's teachings. And I had to go to the East to learn about the interior, and studying as a yoga teacher trained in India, what happens in the subtle energy system. And as having already been a meditator for 15 or so years when I was there and already teaching meditation, it's just interesting to me that I had to go to the East in the 2000s for that decade in order to learn about the internal world as a woman, how to work with our consciousness and our subtle energy system to have it become more, I want to say, divinated, divinely aligned, when in fact Jesus's some of his teachings given to Mary Magdalene, who many agree upon was his first apostle, talked about in her Gospels that internal process. And I know that for years I was saying, like in the thousands when I was first back, I was saying how much it's about, these times we're in now are about restoring not even restoring, but initiating in the West an appreciation for the subtle, an appreciation for the invisible. And that includes the nurturing and nourishment the earth gives us, the unconditional love mothers give, and all of these internal processes within the subtle energy system and our consciousness. And so there's always themes emerging on the retreats. I have my own theme that gets started before the first group comes in, and then each person has their own themes that emerge that I help them interpret. And then the groups, the more that they work with me, like the Grand Dragon Masters, which is the highest level Grand Dragon Master after the Dragon Master level, because they've worked with me for a prolonged amount of time, they've really taken in the internal processes and how to work with one system internally. And so they tend to have a theme that's closer to mine, my personal one for the retreats. And so it was very clear as I went through this time here in Glastonbury with this round of retreats, and the Grand Dragon Masters on a first-time retreat to a new location, the restoration of the divine feminine. Now, I've been talking about the divine feminine and the divine masculine rebalancing within each of us, as well as within the collective. And I know that there's been beautiful signs along the way that the divine masculine is getting purged to come into balance with out of its toxic masculinity, which wasn't even a phrase when I started talking about this. And I'm so grateful that it's now a much more commonly used phrase, particularly here in the UK, even more than it is in the States. And so we went and heard a speaker, a male, who is also focused on the nature of these times and another guide through these times. And he was talking about how this year is a lot about the divine masculine getting healed. And I brought in another male to do a group vision quest. And without going into any more detail, one of the things that he walked us through, he picked some runes based on what I picked runes. And he chose a different vision quest than we've ever done before, because I have hired him since 2017 for each retreat in October and May. This was the first time we did a different group vision quest. And he walked us through a process that involved bringing in the divine masculine. And he was gagged, so he couldn't speak in this vision quest. And nonetheless, he asked us each to take in what the divine masculine was saying. And what I came up with was, he said, "Help me heal." It just popped in. I didn't come up with it. So it was intuitive guidance. And it causes me to sigh, because I know it's a place I've held my whole life. Like, my dad and I have such a great relationship. So much of that's due to my mom. I'm the only daughter of 4 kids, and all of my brothers are awakened and very sensitive, loving, divine masculine versions. But I remember as a teenager, I'm going to say yet I remember as a teenager, like, really needing to follow my own path and feeling the weight and the pressure of my parents' expectations on me on what I'll be doing. And I really needed to hear my own voice. That's how much I knew to listen to my own intuition. I really had to hear what was my reality. And so I had to buck against the authority figure, which was my dad in the household. And again, my mom has encouraged us for years, way back early on in my late teens and early 20s, for he and I to take bike rides together and work on our relationship. And so we have for decades, and we have a great relationship, and he meditates now. So whilst this may seem like I'm just saying a lot of words and there's no connection, I'm giving myself a chance to voice in a more personal way than I usually do these videos the frustration I feel with still having to work on helping the divine masculine come forward out of the toxic masculine. There are so many beautiful divine conscious divine masculine men who have completely shifted and are aligned and solid and elegant, and men balanced in their feminine and their masculine. And this started years ago. I started seeing a lot more of them, and on my path, it seems like, to help give me guidance as well as hope to track with, as 2012 to 2032 is the greatest evolutionary leap for humanity ever. It's considered And we're in the second half of it now, which I've been talking about since 2011, having that weekly radio show, interviewing experts about what this grand shift is about, writing 2 of my 4 books about it. So I've been shown along the way the progress that the toxic masculine has been making towards becoming more the divine masculine. But I do find it interesting as an American born, and remembering my first career, for those of you who don't know, reminding those of you who do, it was in politics, to get folks elected to both, at that time I was living in California, the California State Assembly, and then also at the federal level, that were going to write, not just sponsor or vote yes, but write environmentally protective and conservative legislation to conserve the environment. And so looking at the idea that we've not yet to elect a female as the head of our state, and over here in England, the female voice of authority, it's just so much more considered a voice of authority. Whereas I remember hearing something from somebody who was an actress within a certain channel that's a popular one in America, that when I asked her to ask why didn't they have more female show hosts, I was told because the male voice is given the assumption of authority. And so if you're feeling frustrated as a female, and if you're aware of the fever peaking before it breaks phenomena that happens with any time we purge a pattern, a toxic pattern or density, before it takes its more divine aligned form, it's like a fever peaking before it breaks. I know that I was seeing that for the last bunch, not the last 2 or 3 years, but prior to that, happening in the States. And so the anger in the male in the States, I've considered it a symptom of this toxic masculine purging. You know, it's interesting too, because years ago, around 2017 to 2018, I had somebody come on board who ran my Facebook ads, and she targeted both males and females. And I got so, with things that I was saying, and it wasn't even about the divine feminine and divine masculine. It was about, the work within our consciousness and clearing our blocks so that we can elevate, become more aligned, and help with the vibration upgrade we're all going through, collectively and individually. It pissed men off. There were so many angry comments on my Facebook ads, and it was always, and I don't use always and never very easily, it was always males that were angry. So if you're a female in a female body here, and you are angry or you're frustrated with how long this is taking, I hear you. So we don't always have to be compassionate. We don't always, as like a spiritual person, have to hold the space and go to the light, meaning be lighter in our thoughts and be compassionate and understanding. We can have anger. We just had a really in-depth conversation with one of the guides I hired to drive us over to where we went on this last round of retreats with the most advanced Grand Dragon Masters. And there was this situation that I'm not going to bother going into, but what it resulted in was the observation of, man, anytime the divine feminine expresses power, there is such backlash from the toxic masculinity. I don't know. So I asked him, I was going to just start to say it, but what he said when I asked, why is that the case? He said, because the masculine has had control for centuries, millennia. Particularly I can't even say particularly in the West for my 10 years of experience living in Asia. So it's having difficulty letting go of that control and that dominance. And so I am not suggesting only to pray and only to have compassion. I'm also suggesting what we're seeing here and there, pockets of, speaking your truth and letting your sacral chakra letting yourself feel your sacral chakra, have it be open more by feeling what you actually feel. And so if that is frustration and aggravation at how long this is taking and how much backlash, like that law in Arizona that got repealed, banning abortion, even if it was from rape or like late 1800s, I think it was 1865 law. That's an example of the fever peaking before it breaks. I was over here when the Supreme Court of the United States made the decision to repeal Roe v. Wade, and I was done with retreats, and I was touring around at some different country manor houses, and I had like the guides, once they heard my accent when I would ask a question, all of them, male and female, asked me, what is going on over there? How could they make that ruling? Why are they taking you so far backwards? So I just want to reinforce that it's okay to use your voice when you're pissed. I don't mean to project anger and irresponsibly throw it around, but I do mean you don't always, as a spiritual person, spiritual woman, have to be full of love and light. Anger is a good fuel. If you allow yourself to feel the frustration, you allow yourself to feel the anger, it won't be buried. Yeah, so those chakras won't be blocked. So you'll have more chi or prana or life force flowing through your system, helping you with your health and vitality and divine alignment. So it's also a great motivator to draw boundaries, yeah? And so that was another theme that emerged a lot. I'm squinting, so sorry that I'm not like sitting here totally smiling with my eyes. And there I am apologizing for not being, a loving light, exactly what I'm saying, right? Like as the female, we're supposed to, and especially a spiritual female, we're supposed to bring in the love and the light and the peace. And I know me as a Libra, I also love harmony and peace and balance. So if your anger can be used, which it is, it's a great motivator and fuel, use it to help motivate you and let yourself speak and not be so concerned, fellow sisters, of what the others, that like they can't handle what you're saying, or that a lot of the times it feels like women being more clairsentient naturally than the old paradigms men, because our new awakened divine masculine men are so sensitive and so perceptive, right? So when your clairsentience is picking up that and then you have a mental conclusion, if I speak up here, I'm going to disturb the peace, and I don't want to feel that, or they're going to have a backlash to me expressing how I really feel, so let me stuff it down. All of those are assumptions that the people you're speaking to can't handle what it is you want to say, right? So I'm sure some of the things that I've said you've been sitting there disagreeing with or agreeing with, and having reaction to. There's a crow. Yeah. So a bit more patience, I think, and then also expressing the impatience. I mean, it's been years. I've been with different groups of over here, both at the Dragon Master level and the Grand Dragon Master level, in ceremony, sacred ceremony, invoking help and support from with the resistance from the toxic masculine. So this is a super long video. I just eyed the time. It's the longest video I think I've done in years, but it is such an important time we're in right now as the breeze communicates, and as I let myself just speak, sitting on the Mother Mary ley line, invoking Mary Magdalene and Mother Mary to help us all on this planet come into more balance, both individually and collectively, that feels better for us all, and that is in more divine alignment. Namaste.